You are listening to KC Sports Network, the #1 podcast network for today's Kansas City sports fans. With former players from your favorite teams, informed perspectives, and former insiders, this is the place for you. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts or on our YouTube channel, all over social media, or our morning newsletter, KCSN Daily, dedicated to your Kansas City Chiefs. KC Sports Network is proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
KC Laboratory, sponsored by Emprise Bank.
It's a live Monday edition of the KC Laboratory, presented by Emprise Bank. When was the last time you went into a bank? Now more than ever, who you're doing business with is more important than where they're located. Emprise is a trusted company with mobile tools that take your banking beyond the borders of whatever city you live in. Emprise Bank, member FDIC, our partners in Possible here at KC Sports Network. Been wonderful to work with them. And if you have any banking needs, you should too. Maddie Lane, find him on Twitter at Maddie_KCSN. Hi.
Killer transition. Craig, find him on Barley Hop on Twitter. How you doing, bud?
Hey, I'm doing great, guys. Let's get to football. The Chiefs had some news today.
Let's get right to that exciting news. Let's jump into that.
Yeah, this is great. What a great
Yikes.
start. Yeah. There's some news I think we wanted to kind of touch on right off the top because it happened today. Willie Gay has been suspended for the next 4 games as part of the personal conduct policy stemming from an incident, I believe, in January. So the Chiefs are going to be without a linebacker that's made some big splash plays, some big strides in the last this season. Initial thoughts when you first heard the news, Matthew?
I'm not even going to touch on all of it from off the field.
Sure.
Right? Like there's no need to. That it is what it is. He's gone. He has decided he's not going to appeal. It's 4 games. So first thought was, I don't know how long the Chiefs maybe knew this was coming, because I don't know if they necessarily did a lot to plan on this. I think it's kind of crazy that the anticipated backup in Elijah Lee would even be flirting with being waived on the initial 53-man roster if they knew this was coming. Like, no matter what, that's a risk that just doesn't need to be taken if you know it's coming. So I wonder if it at least caught the Chiefs slightly off guard upon how long it was going to be and the fact that it was coming down. This hurts. Willie Gay is looking like he's finally, I don't want to say he's been in the league forever, but he's like he's finally really turning that corner. You do see improvement in all facets of his game. And now to have him lose some more time, thankfully it's not to an injury this time. I believe, he should still be able to stay in shape and stay on top of stuff, but it stinks to see a guy starting to round that corner, finally get ready to take that big step, and then have to lose a chunk of his season.
It's another year now where Willie Gay Jr. is going to be kind of questionable. I mean, he played in all 16 his rookie year, but obviously a rookie. They didn't trust him to be out there on the field a ton. He got kind of hurt towards the end of the year. Last year, he gets hurt for a little stretch. Now there's a suspension. It's just one of those things. It's like, the best availability or the best ability is availability. And if he's not available, that just sucks. It's hard to plan your defense around a guy, even as impactful as Willie Gay Jr. is. I mean, he's flying around. He's taken away throwing lanes. He has been everything in coverage at the second level for the Chiefs to start this season. I know he's had a few missed tackles here and there, but in coverage, he has been lights out for large portions of the year so far. He is a major reason why the Chiefs won that Chargers game, even with the missed tackles, taking stuff away, had the blitz, forced the interception, jumps another pass. But even with all that stuff, it's all that stuff behind the scene that you're not seeing. Some of that hot route stuff that they're trying to hit quick. Justin Herbert's ADOT is so low in that game, and Willie Gay is sitting in the throwing lanes, and he's able to get into these places. So it is going to be a major miss for this Chiefs defense. It's not just because, they're playing against the Bucks and the Bills coming up here. It's in general. They were doing so much stuff with him that it's really going to be something that hurts this team.
I kind of felt like him and Nick Bolton kind of had a good thing going a little bit here too. I think that they were playing well in tandem with each other, and that kind of chemistry goes away a little bit. In retrospect, looking back at it, the one I obviously like it's a undrafted free agent linebacker, but the Chiefs like signed Jack Conklin to their active roster on like Wednesday. And I feel like that might have been a response to this for special teams purposes, for linebacker depth, period. Just, I think there's adding more linebacker depth to your active roster probably makes a little bit of sense why, I think that in retrospect, I was kind of surprised. I was like, I wondered if this was one of those situations where like another team was sniffing around Jack Conklin, looked to assign him to the active roster. But now I kind of think more so it's like, it's probably that they just needed to add additional depth, to the active roster because they were, trying to, solve the Willie Gay problem.
And I think we all thought it was weird when they did that going up against the Chargers to add an extra linebacker. And that very well may be the case. It's just, it doesn't seem to me that they would have known before the Arizona game because they didn't do a good job of working in anybody in Willie's place, even once that game was out of hand. It wasn't until it was the wholesale second team that you got backup linebacker reps. So I just don't see how they could have known going into that and then not given Elijah Lee or Leo Chanel more reps with the first team if they knew what was coming. So yeah, maybe they did find out this past week, and that goes to your point that's why they went ahead and signed, Cochran at that point.
Agree.
I was going to say, do us a favor, hit the like and hit the subscribe button if you're watching this. It makes Craig Stout smile big time.
It does. It does. When I see the counter go up, it makes me smile.
It does. It makes him smile big time. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, all that good stuff. You know what else makes Craig Stout smile? DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is officially live in Kansas. Just in time for football season. That means betting legally on same-game parlays, spreads, money lines, and more anytime and anywhere across the Sunflower State. To celebrate, DraftKings is giving new Kansas customers a can't-miss offer. Bet just $5 on $200 in free bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code KCSN to get $200 in free bets instantly when you place a $5 bet on anything. That's code KCSN only at DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook. Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 800-522-4700. 21 and older, physically present in Kansas. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus issued as free bets. One early win token issued at opt-in. Moneyline bets only. Deposit and wagering restrictions apply. Eligibility and terms at DraftKings.com/Kansas on behalf of Boot Hill Resort and Casino. I think we were analyzing, if I remember, right after, I think it was the Arizona game. I mean, the Chiefs played 2 games in 4 days, and like my brain's mush, and like I was not prepared for a Thursday night primetime football game against that football team. That's another story for me. But I remember we were talking, I think it was after the Cardinals game. We were looking at the snap counts, and we were kind of, I think there was some really cool visual kind of snap count representations that are out there now too.
Doing lots of good work out there. Lots of people are doing lots of good work. Yep.
Yeah. Whoever's doing that. I wish I could shout you out and give you
shout out Joseph Hefe on Twitter. He's doing awesome.
Wonderful. Shout out Joseph Hefe. I looked at you looked at the snap counts, right? And you see Leo Chanel. And I think we were having the conversation in the DMs, and it's like Leo Chanel played in the base and then didn't play Mike or Will basically the rest of the game until the game was well out of hand. So like they put Leo Chanel at the Sam and then just kind of bypassed him for the rest of the game in any other looks. Greg, is that about what we kind of surmised?
That is exactly what happened with him. We saw him basically come in after Elijah Lee. Elijah Lee was the first guy that was replacing Willie Gay. Willie had to step out for a snap during the game when it was a little bit closer and the starters were still playing. Elijah Lee filled in directly there. But when it went to the second team, it was Darius Harris at the mic, and it was Elijah Lee at the will when they were playing there in the nickel, or the buck, as they like to call it in the Buffalo. It's the same position there. Elijah Lee got a drive that he got to be out there on the field. It might have been 2 drives. Again, we had another game between now and then, but then it was there at the end of the game that Leo Chanel was able to get in as the will. So he's very clearly right now competing for that will position as the backup to that. So I think we're going to see Elijah Lee. That way, Leo Chanel can kind of stay and keep the Sam reps on his plate. They're very clearly leading him into those Sam reps, not trying to put too much on his plate for those specific reps there. But they do like to swap those outside linebackers a little bit. This is kind of similar to what we saw with Willie in his rookie season as well. Played in the base a lot, didn't play in the nickel a ton. We didn't really see a lot of reps there. We were clamoring at that time because Damian Wilson was playing in the nickel there, and it's like, hey, put the super athletic guy on the field. They don't like to be in that nickel with a rookie linebacker in there, with the exception of Nick Bolton. He's the only guy that they've really trusted to do that. So I do expect that it's going to be Elijah Lee stepping in there. Leo Chanel is going to be your base Sam still. There's still going to be plenty of reps for him there, but I don't expect that this is now going to be a big uptick in Leo Chanel snaps.
I think it's pretty clear that Elijah Lee is going to get that coverage linebacker role. I think that's the last thing that Leo Chanel right now has shown that he's ready for. And going back to these snap counts that we're talking about are the same thing the Chiefs showed you in preseason. Chanel took over the starting Sam role, then didn't get back on the field until they got to the third string linebackers. He didn't come back out there to play Mike until they got to the third string. So I would not anticipate him jumping into the will. I would not anticipate him jumping into your garden variety nickel. Now, I did want to ask Craig, though, do we think there's a chance in some of these bigger nickel packages on rundowns where they go in the nickel, do you think you could get Chanel and Bolton together? Because Elijah Lee's a smaller linebacker. He's also not the most athletic. I'd say Chanel has clearly the size advantage and the athleticism advantage. If you are anticipating run on a 2nd and 5 and you're going in nickel, do you think we'll see some Bolton plus Chanel combinations, or do you think it will always be Elijah Lee in the nickel unless there's an injury?
I think maybe towards the end of the 4 games, we might see a little bit more of the Chanel in the nickel, maybe. I think in those scenarios, you might see what we've seen out of some of these rookie linebackers when they've been in some of those scenarios. He's going to be blitzing. Like they're not gonna stand back there and say, hey, drop to this coverage zone, pick this guy up coming across, pass this guy off at this depth. He's struggling with that a little bit, or at least was during the preseason. So set him on the field and blitz him in those scenarios. That's a fine thing for them to do. And you can especially run blitz him between the A gaps and have Nick Bolton kind of clean up off of him. I can definitely see a usage for him at the second level there, but I don't think that it's going to be immediate. Again, Steve Spagnuolo, for everything that he has done with all of these rookies in the secondary, at that second level especially, he does not like to play rookies. It's just a lot that he asks those guys to do, a lot that he puts on the linebacker's plate. And especially, here's another thing. We're just going to bring this up now. Now's the logical time. The way that they've used that Will spot so far this year has been different than they have in previous years. Willie's kicking far out over the number 2. He's playing more of like an overhang with outside leverage. He's playing more as a slot defender than we've seen him typically, or any of the linebackers typically under Steve Spagnuolo in Kansas City. Most of the time they're playing between the tackles. Farthest out that he's going is maybe stacking head up with the defensive end on the edge if he's not on the line of scrimmage, at the second level there. But we are seeing him kick all the way out into the slot in the nickel against tight ends, against, slot receivers. That's what we've seen so far. That's a lot for a rookie to be on their plate. He's playing as a true apex defender out there, not a simulated one where they had a safety kind of kicking down and playing that as we saw in years past. He was playing as a true apex defender and filling throwing lanes from there. That's not something that you're just going to turn to a rookie who didn't really do that in his collegiate career and spin around and say, hey, buddy, guess what? You're getting out there and you're going to cover the slot. And oh, by the way, Devontae Adams is in the slot right now. Good luck. Have fun with that. You're not going to do that to the guy. You're going to put somebody that's been in the league a little bit more, understands his coverage leverage a little bit more in Elijah Lee, and he's going to be able to do that on passing downs.
One thing really quick before we move on from Willie Gay, and I was probably going to bring this up tonight because we were probably going to talk about some things that we saw and rewatching the game and some of that stuff. I was willing, and I am still willing, to live with some of the missed tackles that we've seen a little bit from him to this point, just because the way in which he is flying around the field with confidence, I think, trumps some of the completing and bringing down plays. Now, I want him to get better. I want him to improve tackling. But I do think that there's not a ton of guys that change the line of scrimmage very often in the second level of the Chiefs defense. I don't think historically. I feel like there's always plays, I don't think that the negative play factor is not something that I think has always been as consistent when you look at the back seven. And I love to see him flying around and making some of these plays or, really disrupting, the timing and plays of these offense, because there's some legit, juice and quick play ID. It's better. He's markedly better. And I just, obviously he needs to bring some plays down, but like, I kind of want to, I liked what I was seeing out of him. I'm feeling good about the confidence that he's playing with. And I think, he feels like he's got kind of a, safety net a little bit with Bolton too, all that chemistry. But that's just, that was something I wanted to say about Willie Gay. It's kind of disappointing we're not getting to see more for a while.
And I think, so this is the big thing. I think if you have a lot of people that haven't paid attention to Willie Gay or they haven't watched every Chiefs game, they're going to go figure out where they can find stats and see what they say. And they are bad. He's had 17 targets this year for 16 catches, according to PFF. And I don't even know if that's wrong because the Chiefs have played so much zone in which they are throwing the ball underneath. And he just happens to be the closest guy because he's the only guy that can run in that area of the field. Like he's the fastest guy. So he's the first one there. I'm not saying that he's covering bad. It's just you go look at the stats, they're bad. You look at the missed tackles, they're bad. The yards given up, pretty bad. His PFF grade for, take it with a grain of salt or for whatever value you put into it is really bad. But you watch this Chiefs defense, number 50 is everywhere. Like he's doing things that nobody else on this defense can. A lot of these run plays that people are highlighting other defensive linemen for making great plays. Yes, they are. Willie Gay's resetting the line of scrimmage on a lot of these. He's not always making the play, but he's pushing a tight end or a tackle into the backfield and forcing a runner to change direction. You look at some of these throwback screens, some of these trick plays, there's one guy that's going over there to chase it down. And he might be missing the tackle, but without him there or somebody getting there slower, you don't miss a tackle. You just give up a huge play. So I think you're going to see a huge step back in the Chiefs defensive, just overall speed. I think the whole defensive team speed is going to look a lot slower without them out there. I don't think that Elijah Lee and Nick Bolton are going to be able to replicate that. I don't think Brian Cook right now, if he steps into some of these roles for coverage, is going to be able to replicate that. Defense is going to look slower for the next 4 weeks. They really are. That's going to be the biggest change. And I'm interested to see how Steve Spagnuolo adapts because like Craig said, Willie's playing slot. He's up to 20 snaps almost playing as a slot defender. As a slot defender, as a linebacker, and this is against receivers, tight ends, whoever, that's a lot. And he still has so much range from there. So we could probably talk about Willie Gay all day. It's we don't need to here, but he's definitely his loss, I think, is going to be felt, and no more than just the speed on the field is about to take a significant step back.
I do, before I toss it to you, Kent, I do want to throw this out there. Nick Bolton's stop on third down. It was a gain of 0 from the Thursday night game. I think everybody remembers right there at the end. Yeah. Nick Bolton plays that very, very well. Willie Gay drives Rashawn Slater 3 or 4 yards into the backfield, and Justin Reed sets the edge off of a blocking tight end. Those two made the play. Now, Nick Bolton does an awesome job reading it, stuffing him in the hole. All kudos to him. But it's made by Willie Gay taking one of the best left tackles in the league for a ride and resetting the line of scrimmage. So it's happening often. It's happening out of frame and stuff like that. We're going to talk about that. Mike and DJ and I are going to talk about that later this week. But it's, he's been so fun to watch. I'm going to miss him for the next 4.
You're going to notice his absence. You're also probably noticing that there are strange tall boys of beer in the bottled water section of your local store. Well, it's not beer. It's actually mountain spring water from the Alps, and it's called Liquid Death. Why is the water called Liquid Death? Well, because it will brutally murder your thirst. And they're infinitely recyclable tall boy cans, helping to bring death to plastic bottles. They also donate 10% of the profits from every can sold to help kill plastic pollution. Go get Liquid Death at your local Woodman, 7-Eleven, Roundy's, or Hy-Vee, or find a Liquid Death retailer near you with their store locator tool at liquiddeath.com/KCSN. That's liquiddeath.com/KCSN. BJ just sent us a picture of him drinking Liquid Death. There's been a murder. It's BJ Kissel's thirst. Yeah, I think I have to retire after that. Sorry. All right, let's talk a little bit about that Chiefs Chargers game. There's been a little bit of
Let's do
time
it.
since, we've got to watch a little bit more. We've got to see a little bit more different perspectives, views. First big takeaway you had, Matthew.
Okay, so when I watch a football game, my process I think is a lot different than a lot of other people's. If you watch our post-game shows, I usually am coming probably across as the most negative person about the thing and the least happy.
What?
And this is true because in the moment I am very excited or disappointed based on the instant reaction. And when I have a moment to think about it, like to going directly to a post-game show, all I do is think about the future ramifications over what's happening. And watching that game, all I see is red flag after red flag of how the offense couldn't do anything except for hit a couple explosive plays, and a couple times they were on busted coverages. The offensive line couldn't cover anybody. The run game was 150-yard run and a bunch of nothing. The defense played overall well, but it was only for a half. The first half, they kind of lucked out on Brandon Staley being a coward. So that was my tone coming out of the postgame show. I have gone back and rewatched now. And now, as traditionally goes, I am now a lot more excited about what I saw because I think a lot of the issues that the Chiefs had offensively, at least, are things that can be fixed. Protection specifically, the protection got better in the second half because, just to be frank, the Chargers did a great job gaming up the Chiefs' pass protection, and they had them spinning in circles, blocking air.
Literally spinning. Literal spinning at times.
Then you get to the second half of the game, and all of a sudden, some of those same looks, the Chargers backed off of some of those, mugging the gaps and some of the sim pressure looks. But even when they did, the Chiefs handled it so much better in the second half. It wasn't just the quick game. They just handled it better. So that was just one area I'm like, okay, immediately after the game, I thought it was a cause for concern because of how bad it was. But you go back and rewatch and you see the Chiefs adjust and how they started adjusting by having the running back pick up a linebacker on the interior versus picking up a defensive end on the outside. And just that simple change made everything flow a lot better. So I feel better about the offense than I did leaving the game. I think the Chargers had a good game plan. I think the Chiefs did not have a good one, but they were still able to adjust just enough. And a few of the things that didn't go their way were close. So it went from bad to good. And now I feel even better about it, as we've gotten a couple days away and a chance to rewatch.
Yeah, I'd mostly agree with that. I want to see a little more separation from some of these wide receivers. I mean, this is a good defense. Patrick didn't have a ton of time, and he was clearly off his game. But I want to see a little more separation from MVS, from Juju. I want to see more Sky Moore. I mean, obviously, we barely have seen Sky Moore to date here, but I just want to see these guys be able to create a little more space than we saw right now. I mean, Travis Kelce was the only guy, once again, that was kind of getting open, which goes back to some of the things that we've seen when the offense has struggled, at times to create, to get open, to really be effective for large sections of the game. It's seeing this lack of separation, just a little bit of flashbacks, a little bit of looking at it and going, oh, I don't know how I feel about this. I hope that they're going to clean some of this up. I mean, again, it's going to be a work in progress. I think this is what we kind of expected, maybe a little better than what we saw in the Chargers game. I think this is what we maybe expected in the early going here from such a new offense with all these new pieces. It's just that Cardinals game got us all excited, come crashing back down to earth a little bit with the Chargers game, and the real truth is somewhere in between. I just wish we could see a couple more reps with guys getting a little more open than we saw.
Speaking of Cardinals, LOL Raiders. Yeah, I everything I think was a tick off. Just there's probably a little bit of crediting the Chargers for that. Too. Didn't love the game plan entirely. Like there's some, I think they were trying a lot of floods. They're trying to flood a lot of zones. It was a lot of half field stuff. Honestly, kind of everything was flowing to one side of the field throughout the game. And I mean, it didn't work great. I was looking at some of those plays that they had, just got last night even. And yeah, I mean, some of those concepts didn't work. They did have something kind of cooking though. They ran this kind of flood play. They had Travis Kelce though break out opposite that flood, and he would have been wide open. Mahomes actually missed him. So when I say everything's a tick off. I think Mahomes was a tick off. I think play calling was a tick off. Everything was just not what we've become accustomed to. Now they slogged it out. they fought through it, and they put enough points on the board. They still put the offense put 20 points on the board. Is that right? So they got some big explosive plays when they needed to. I think the play call, I wrote about the play call on Watson's touchdown. It was a 3rd and 10. It actually was kind of like it was a play off their base sticks concept. So it looked like they were playing their typical sticks play, where the receivers kind of get to the sticks and sit in zone, and Mahomes kind of tries to figure it out. And they ran a double move off right at the sticks, right at where that play, right where they typically break that route off, right? And so it was just really good play design. It's like it wasn't like barren of good things, to Maddie's point. Like there were still things and still positive things to take away from that game. But it looked more like Craig said, it looked like more what you expected, a new offense coming together. The Cardinals game was fool's gold. It was fun, but it was fun fool's gold, is kind of how I feel. And I think it probably will be a little bit more challenging as this team grows and gets, I don't want to get too overhyped about what we saw in Arizona now.
Well, I think Craig touched on it. One of the biggest issues that they're having, to me, is we all love the Chiefs going into this heavier personnel and putting these tight ends on the field. But when you put a Noah Gray or a Jody Fortson out there with the Travis Kelce and an MVS, or whatever combination of these big bodies you have, that's a lot of dudes that can be locked up by a corner back in man coverage. That's just a lot of guys that are easy to cover by just average cover guys that just happen to have a little bit of size. And even for the Chiefs, Mahomes isn't the kind of quarterback that is going to throw contested catch after contested catch opportunity. So it doesn't matter that Fortson might have 4 inches on a cornerback. If the cornerback's in the right spot, Andy and Mahomes aren't really trying to push that ball into that spot over and over again. So I think an issue the Chiefs have they're slow on offense all of a sudden. Yes, McCole Hardman's fast, but they're a relatively slow offense. When you put your 2 starting receivers out there, MVS, who I understand can run fast, but just watch him accelerate. It's not the same kind of fast the Chiefs have had in the past.
It's a build-up. It's a build-up. It's not explosive.
Good vertical receiver, but he's not turning a slant into a huge gain unless there's a runway already present for him. And then Juju Smith-Schuster isn't a fast guy. Kelce, in his older age, he's clearly lost a step just in terms of raw acceleration. Doesn't mean he's not great, but he's lost a step. And now all of a sudden, the only speed on this team is McCole Hardman. And he's the only guy or Justin Watson when you put him out there. But it's just such a limited amount of speed. And I think you saw the Chargers, all they did, anytime Juju or MVS was backside of any kind of play, they just said, nope, that's man on man. And we are leaving that away. And we are putting the safety. He is going to rob from the backside. He is going to play the trips opposite. And we are going to have way too many guys that can drive on anything that crosses. We're going to have a top over the front side of every single play because they did not respect Juju and MVS and anybody to do anything backside. That's an issue. They're going to have to come up with a solution to beat man coverage, especially when teams come out and try to match routes and they play from proper leverage. There's just not. Now, Juju was open a couple times over the middle. It would have had to be quick timing passes. We're not talking big plays. We're just talking picking up 7-8 yards at a time, and the Chiefs will have to do that. But they will need some kind of answer for man coverage again, because I don't think they have it right now. I don't think with this receiving group, if you're only going to put McCole Hardman out there half the time, I don't know if you have an easy answer the way they've had in the past, because you don't have that many matchup advantages that Mahomes and Andy Reid want.
I mean, and we went from the ultimate matchup disadvantage. You're never going to play, single coverage man on man against a guy like Tyreek Hill.
Right.
And obviously, even with Travis Kelce, for whatever it is, he still is able to shake guys. He's still able to create that separation and get open. It's just the rest of it. You need dudes, and you need dudes that can go out there and win that. Now, that being said, they are scheming some stuff up. We do see some stuff that is coming open there. It's not like Andy's just sitting back there and being like, well, you guys go win. No, he knows it. He's not just sitting there going, yeah, we're going to put the bad corner on this guy and he can't run away from him. So I guess we're screwed. No, he's scheming stuff up. It's just very hard to do when your offensive line, especially your tackles, are playing a little bit shaky and you're going up against Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. You got to get the ball out fast. It disrupts everything. I am very curious to see, not necessarily the Colts this week, because my goodness, I mean, we'll get to them, but they're bad. But
we'll get to
the
them.
Bucks. Yeah,
we'll
once we get to
preview
the Bucks,
them.
once we get to the Bills, even the Raiders a little bit. I'm curious to see, because they got some guys that can heat up the edges a little bit better. The guys can get home a little bit quicker. That's going to be more normal than maybe what we saw against the Chargers, where you just got two guys that are ridiculous and then an all-pro in Derwin James playing like an all-pro in the middle of the field. It just takes away a lot of what you can do when you're trying to scheme some of that stuff up. So yes, it is concern. I know I just said that I'm concerned about them not getting open, but I'm also carrying that with a giant grain of salt into the next couple of weeks.
Okay, here's my next question. How concerned are you about the cornerback position, Matthew?
Oh, we're jumping off the offense. Okay. How concerned about the cornerback? Yeah, fairly, because Rashad Fenton still starts and he's going to play a lot of reps. And I am always going to be concerned when Rashad Fenton is a starter that doesn't have a deserving direct challenger right now. I like Joshua Williams' prospect as being a good NFL player as anybody else. I don't think that he's ready to push Rashad Fenton for a starting role right now. And as long as Trent McDuffie's hurt and then working back from injury, I think Jalen Watson's proven that he can go out there and play at least at an adequate, if not better level right now. But then you still got Fenton on the other side. And I think Rashad Fenton right now, there's some good plays. You like some stuff. If I could just play cover 2 and just have him sit in the flat and come hit guys and be physical all game long, we're in business. Maybe the Colts we can trade for him. Maybe they have something that the Chiefs could use. But
no. Gus Bradley's the coordinator over there. They don't need cover 2 anymore.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. They're out on the cover 2 game.
I wonder if that's part of their problem.
But yeah, I think Rashad Fenton's relatively limited in what you can do. I think he does always need some help over the top, or he's going to give up way too much cushion underneath. So that's always going to make me worried. And then across from him, you now have a rookie that is playing very well, but he's still a rookie. So there's going to come a bad game. There's going to come multiple bad games as a rookie. And then what do you do when you don't really have any answers on the outside?
Okay. So we're going to get a little bit nerdy here. The way that the Chiefs played at the beginning of the year with Trent McDuffie on the field and Rashad Fenton on the field as well was drastically different how they are playing right now. There was a lot more man coverage reps. There was a lot more single high stuff. There was a lot more evolution. Like, they were throwing a bunch of stuff at Kyler Murray early in that game. They were throwing a bunch of different coverages, different rotations, things like that. And we got to see that. And this is kind of, to the point that we all made earlier this season. Steve Spagnuolo was ready to go with what Trent McDuffie can do. The coverage book is wide open with a guy that can do everything the way that Trent McDuffie can do and be glued to guys the way that Trent McDuffie can be. Now, all of a sudden, he gets hurt. When he gets hurt, it's no longer L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie in the base. Now it is L'Jarius Sneed and Rashad Fenton in the base with Jalen Watson coming in there. Now the trust level for everything has really gotten pretty shaky here. We're no longer running some of this single high stuff. We're no longer trusting that these guys can run a whole bunch of one robber and that everybody's going to be in the back pocket for everybody. We're not trusting that we're going to match on some of these cover 3 looks and be able to drive on everything underneath. No, now we're playing a lot of static cover 2. And a lot of static cover 2, maybe with a meg attachment to it, a man everywhere he goes, like they did to try and take away Mike Williams there throughout the game. They knew that Justin Herbert was trying to peel off and hit Mike Williams early in the rep, and they were kind of bracketing him a little bit, and they would just basically have one guy play meg on Mike Williams, and then they'd play cover 2 across the board. So it's something that we look at here and look at how basic the coverage got just in that short amount of time. Now, I understand it was 4 days. Your Trent McDuffie got hurt. It was 4 days, and you had to install a full game plan for a rookie corner that you're trying to protect and a guy in Rashad Fenton who isn't playing very well at the catch point right now, especially against a guy like Mike Williams. So you really had to install a basic thing. I wonder if while Trent McDuffie is out, we are going to see just very vanilla coverage schemes, which is very anti-Spags, and especially with Willie Gay out, now you've lost one of your apexes. An extremely vanilla coverage scheme with those guys on the outside just trying to protect everybody underneath. Going to see a lot of Juan Thornhill, a lot of Justin Reed deep, and just try and box everything in, allow a whole bunch of stuff kind of in some of these spaces. So I'm prepared to be sitting here 3 weeks from now talking about how the cornerback play doesn't look good, how the coverage scheme doesn't look good, and it's going to be mostly because I think it's going to be very, very vanilla with all these new faces in it.
And I'm sorry. Oh, Maddie, you go. You've got something else. I can tell on your face.
I was just going to ask Craig if he thought that this was a Justin Herbert Chargers game plan, or if he thinks this is what we are going to see going forward. I know this is impossible to answer because he touched on the issues, right? You're coming out on 4 days rest and you were playing an entirely different style of team. And now you're incorporating another player that is going to play 75% plus of your snaps in a situation where it's going to be high leverage. So like, at what point do we think that is a specific game plan versus what he can or can't do, at this point in time? Because I think we all talked about it leading up to this game. Realistically, the Chargers are a pretty decent matchup for Watson. They don't have speed to stress him vertically. It's a bunch of size. There's a bunch of guys that he should be able to match and contend and play physical with. So you would almost think if there was ever a matchup just to say, okay, we can at least survive with him in man coverage, this might be the one.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that being the case. And honestly, with the depth of target that Justin Herbert's thrown out there, sitting back and playing a little bit of static cover 2 and just letting everything develop underneath, I mean, that's not the worst idea in the world. I'm just very curious if I'm with you. Is that a Charger specific game plan, or is it something that we're going to see a little bit different? Because man, they got Mike Evans on the horizon. They got Chris Godwin on the horizon. They got Devontae Adams. They got Stephon Diggs.
We'll see.
Or is it to protect Rashad Fenton?
I mean, who knows? They weren't being that vanilla with Rashad in the nickel. To be fair, they weren't being that vanilla with him. So I do think it's related to the rookie. But they got a lot of really good receivers coming up here that can really torch some of these guys if they're going to play vanilla.
Awesome.
Just listen. Hate to be let's talk about the defensive line. They're great. How about that?
The defensive line, we did need to get in there because I think the defensive line played really, really, really well, especially Chris Jones. I think I heard on the broadcast at one point, like in the middle of the third quarter, someone made the comment like, "It's been a quiet night for Chris Jones so far, but he's really coming on strong." And I was like, "Huh? What?" I think Chris Jones had a great game. I think he was impactful pretty early and often. Like I was kind of surprised by the way it was framed. I was like, that doesn't check out to me. I thought Chris Jones. I mean, Chris Jones' start's been very, very good, but this team really needed peak Chris Jones, and they got peak Chris Jones, and it was disruptive in a massive, massive football game, Maddie.
So I agree with the comment. I thought Chris Jones was actually getting handled by Zion Johnson a lot.
Well,
in that game.
yeah,
and he was getting
when they
a lot
moved
of
him to Matt Filer, he dominated him though.
No, he did. But I thought, to Kent's point, I thought he said in the second half was when that comment was made, and I agree. Chris Jones completely took over that game from the third quarter on. He was unstoppable, run, pass, whatever it may be. But I thought in the first half there was multiple times where he got one-on-one with a rookie right guard and kind of just got stuck. He kept trying to. And okay, it's speaking of nerdy, it's matchup stuff, right? So you're going up against Zion Johnson, who isn't the tallest, isn't the longest interior offensive lineman. Chris Jones is a very tall, long defensive lineman. He sees one-on-one against a rookie. He goes and throws one of his exceptional swim moves or arm over moves and tries to use his lateral agility to beat him. The problem is Zion Johnson is so strong that he got beat. He got his hands beat, but he was so strong, he was able to just get a hold of Chris Jones' ribcage and then just drive him around from there and then never let go. And Chris could not do anything about it. And rather than let Chris Jones try to fight through it and figure out a better way to attack him as the game went on, they just said, we'll just move him and go take on the starter across from him and completely destroy him. It's just, I agree kind of that. I thought Chris had a couple of opportunities where you would anticipate your Joey Bosa level player, who Joey Bosa was freaking phenomenal in that game. You expected Chris Jones to show up the same way Bosa did all game long. And I don't think it happened until the second half.
I will say, I felt like the needle moved a little bit in the run game with him towards the end of the first half. That's kind of where I was just like, oh, okay. This is good. This is okay. But yeah, no, I'm there. The I mean, it's a forklift, it's an up and over, it's whatever you want to call it. What he did by, replacing the elbow with underneath with Filer there on his first sack. I mean, that was exceptional. I mean, Justin Herbert wasn't at the top of his drop and Chris Jones was in his lap. Like it was over right then and there. And then he just kept making plays after that. Swatted down another pass. He had another sack later in the game. I mean, like, that's the player that you expect to get. I mean, we talk about all the time. It's like, trying to pay guys and trying to make sure that you're getting what you're paying for guys that you got so far this season. And I'm including the Arizona Cardinals game. You have gotten every penny out of Chris Jones that you have paid him and more, honestly. The pressures that he brought in the Cardinals game were ludicrous. He turns around, they put him in a good position, and he lines up, and he is just exceptional against the Chargers. I know a lot of people are going to say that contract year is undefeated, RIP Therese there, but I'm wondering, seeing the interaction, seeing that, I don't know if you guys saw the video late yesterday of Joe Cullen and him interacting on the sideline. It was really good to see. Joe Cullen is Chris Jones's biggest hype man. And that's hard to beat because there's a lot of people on that defensive line that are massive Chris Jones hype men. Joe Cullen was going insane, just screaming, I knew you were going to hit it. I knew you were going to, it seems like maybe, and this isn't a slight on Brendan Daly, but it seems like maybe the way that Joe Cullen coaches is tailor-made for the way that Chris Jones responds to things. And maybe it's just the approach, hey, this guy is susceptible to this. So hit this. When you feel this, hit this immediately and do this. And maybe that's getting home to Chris more because he's winning quicker. He's winning more often. And that's hard to say for a guy that is a legitimate all-pro candidate. Most years that he's in the league, he's arguably the second best defensive tackle in the league. And we're seeing him at an even higher level right now. And so I wonder if we're feeling the Joe Cullen effect already on the interior for Chris Jones, and you're just seeing that on the field immediately.
One thought, in not the most positive way, I think the second team interior defensive line run defense is a little bit rough, and I think teams are kind of playing on that a little bit. Like, I think when it's Turk Wharton and it's Colin Saunders, they're running the football a little more intentionally. It hasn't been the prettiest. So Derek Nottie is you the real MVP. Thanks everybody watching right now. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, tell us what you thought about the Chiefs game. It's been, got a lot of people watching right now. Appreciate everybody. That's great. Just so you guys know, KCSN Update's going to be posting at 9:00 tonight as well. So here in about 15 minutes, the debut for KCSN Update's going to be hitting. So you make sure you check that out one. It's going to be a good one. Good one today. Closing thoughts, or you want to kind of move on, maybe do some closing thoughts from each of us. Just one comment, one more thing that we haven't talked about this game that you wanted to make sure you profiled.
Sure. What do you have, Kent?
Oh, I was going to ask you, Maddie.
No, you go first, buddy.
Sure. It's not that
anybody real quick while we do these. People in the comment section, if you have any burning questions about the game, throw them in and we will answer them quickly before we get out of here. So start throwing them in there if you need to, and we'll get to those here in 1 second.
Rapid fire.
Yeah. Okay. So I think there were lowlights for the entirety of the offensive line at different points throughout the game. And that was kind of surprising and kind of interesting to see because I don't think we've had that kind of, I don't know if it's ever been, that rough that many times across the entirety of the offensive line. I mean, every guy has something on tape they probably didn't like to see. And that's just not what we became accustomed to last year. But even especially on the interior, I think the interior had a pretty rough game. I know the edge rushers were obviously, were a big concern, and the left tackle or the tackles were obviously a little bit of concern. But I think the interior offensive line had their struggles as well, trying to maybe even help a little bit with that edge group.
For me, I think it was just the general run game. The Chiefs are really close to breaking a lot of big run plays. And I think if a couple of those broke loose at the start of the game, you would have seen them run the ball a lot more because they clearly came out and tried to do it. Joey Bosa by himself blew up 3 run plays that the Chiefs had him blocked up. They had it drawn up perfectly. Joey Bosa blew up Trey Smith one play, who did not have a good game. He blew up Michael Burton one play, and then another time he just was able to slip around a block. And like all three of these stopped a play that otherwise was blocked up really well from being at least 5-10 yards more on every single one. Derwin James made a couple really nice plays versus the run. So I think the Chiefs were really close, I think, to actually going into a little bit more of a run-heavy attack. But in typical Andy Reid fashion, you get 5, 6, 7 runs into the game, and all of a sudden you don't have that many yards off of them. You start to take the foot off the gas in the run play. And that's just Andy Reid. I can't blame him because they weren't actually working, but they were so close. So I do think there is a little bit of hope for this run game. And one big thing that's going to help Blake Bell when he gets back, boy, having not Noah Gray or Jody Fortson or even Travis Kelce trying to pull off some of these blocks they needed from a tight end is going to go a long way, because those three tight ends missed a lot of blocks that would have helped, that I think Blake Bell at least helps in a couple of them. So I think there is more help for the run game for those of you that want to see the Chiefs do more. I do think it is coming because they were close, and I think they're missing one of their better accessory blockers.
Yeah, and Derwin James saved a touchdown as well. Like, I mean, like, in the run game. Like, my goodness.
Derwin's flying from the backside of a play to,
They're that close. I want to see the run game over the next couple weeks. They're that close. But mine is going to be real quick. Watching Carlos Dunlap and Mike Dana alternate playing 3-tech right now. It's not Turk Wharton as much. I say 3-tech. Carlos Dunlap spent several snaps in Arizona playing nose tackle, in some lighter, obvious passing down situations, but they're moving those guys into 3-techs more. So what Kent's saying, about some of the interior, some of the backup guys and all that, if you're not playing the run particularly well, and when you're getting into some of those obvious passing situations, or even, second and long-ish where they could run, and you're being replaced on the interior by Mike Dana, by Carlos Dunlap, so they can get more defensive ends on the field. I mean, it makes you wonder why they're carrying so many defensive linemen, interior defensive linemen right now. I'm curious to see if there's going to be a shift in some games going forward, because Kando and Herring have both been inactive both games so far.
Let's take a few questions before we get out of here. We'll just run through a few before we dip out. Jackie Moon, who gets called up first, Danny Shelton or Taylor Stallworth? Give me Danny Shelton for kind of some of the reasons that I talked about earlier, or we talked about a little bit earlier. Will McCutcheon asks, and I'll ask you, Maddie, Brian Cook in the doghouse for the penalties on special teams. What do you think?
I don't know if he's in the doghouse for the special teams penalties, but I think he is we're bringing him along slowly because he's a rookie house right now. And I don't think they fully trust him yet. And those special teams penalties certainly won't help. Although, one of them was pretty soft. Let's be real.
Craig, I'm going to ask you this one. Chiefer, is George better than Frank already?
Man, George is better pass rushing right now than Frank is. Frank's an exceptional run defender still. I know that everybody's going to roll their eyes terribly at that. I get it. I totally get it.
He still makes a couple every game, though.
He does. He really does. But
George got it.
More of an impact against the pass, clearly, right
sure.
there.
Okay, so I got this one. Morgan C. Why do you think Sky Moore didn't get into the game? So here's the thing. I'm racking my brain a little bit, because what we saw to Sky Moore in week 1 was really good. He's been consistent and steady and solid on special teams performing. He's made some nice returns. I feel like that's a guy you want to put the ball in his hands a little bit. I don't understand why he hasn't been able to scratch, to scratch lineup. But think about it. Justin Watson got in, saw more snaps and more opportunities than Sky Moore did on offense. And I don't know. I found that a little bit interesting. I don't know. All right, so Grayson asks our guy, can Clyde maintain his play from the first 2 games? Matthew.
Well, Grayson, you should check out the KCSN.substack tomorrow, because we are writing, I am writing about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But to make it quick, yes, I think it's only going to get better. I think Clyde's still a little inconsistent behind this offensive line. There's some stuff he does in the run game that's working, but there's also some small attention to detail mistakes that he's still making that are making good runs, or making potentially great runs only good, making potentially good runs only fine. He's leaving a little extra yardage out there, but he is running better. And I think the Chiefs are running a running offense that's more fit to what he does well. So I think it will get better from where it is right now, but there's definitely some room to improve still.
Joshua Burton, Craig, how did you guys like the Dunlap role?
I mean, I love the Dunlap roll. I love seeing the Dunlap roll, especially when he makes a play. The one that I didn't get is we saw the Dunlap roll after like an 8-yard run early in the game, and he did it. And I was like, what are we doing here? Like, I'm all on board with him after a sack, but it was a little early, a little premature for that one.
In 10 minutes, KCSN update posts to this channel. It's a really good one. Make sure you're checking this out, everybody that's been watching this. Make sure you hit the subscribe button too. You can make sure you're getting all of this content that we've got posted all the time. 17 Chief shows during the week here at KC Sports Network. It's a lot of fun here. We've been getting a lot of stuff out to y'all. Thank you for everybody that's watched tonight. Thank you to everybody that's listening or will be listening. We appreciate you, and we'll catch you later.